feeling that something is wrong, even before anyone says it out loud. People across Earth sense it in different ways. Some notice the unusual silence from the outer colonies. Others see the anxious look on the faces of military officers during news broadcasts. Scientists try to stay calm as they check their instruments again and again, hoping the numbers are wrong. But the numbers are not wrong. A massive enemy fleet has entered human space, far larger than anything anyone expected or prepared for. When the official announcement finally comes, it feels like the world stops for a moment. A high-ranking official appears on the broadcast, speaking slowly and carefully, trying to control his tone. He explains that an unknown force is moving through the outer regions, destroying communication stations and defense platforms. The fleet is moving toward the inner systems toward Earth. People gather in living rooms, in shops, in schools, and on streets, watching the broadcast play out on every screen. Some freeze in fear, others stare blankly, unable to understand how such a powerful enemy could appear so suddenly. Behind the scenes, the government sends out a distress call to the Galactic Council, hoping their allies will respond quickly. The Council had always presented themselves as protectors of peace, fairness, and unity. For years, Earth helped them, supported them, and followed their rules. So naturally, people assume the Council will step in. After all, this is what allies are supposed to do. But hours pass. Then a full day. Still no response. Inside command centers across Earth, anxiety rises. Officers look at each other, wondering why the Council remains silent. Finally, a message arrives not from the Council itself, but from one of their assistants. The tone is cold, formal, and disappointingly short. It says the Council will hold a meeting to discuss Earth's request. Just that, nothing more. People who read the message feel uneasy. Discuss? Why discuss? Why not act? Most expected an immediate military deployment. That is how the Council always spoke about unity. But now that Earth actually needs their help, that unity seems to be fading. Meanwhile, reports keep pouring in. Every hour brings news from another damaged outpost or colony. Some outposts manage to send short messages before they go silent, messages full of static, fear, and confusion. People watch recordings of these messages on public channels, and even though nothing graphic is shown, the emotional weight is enough to shake anyone. You can hear the fear in the voices. You can hear officers trying to stay calm as alarms echo. In the background, you can hear civilians in the distance asking if help is coming. But help does not come. When the Galactic Council finally announces their decision, it shocks the entire planet. Representatives from the Council appear in a large hall, wearing their ceremonial clothing, speaking in a well-rehearsed, polished manner. They say the enemy fleet is too powerful. They say the Council cannot risk a full-scale war. They say they must protect the overall balance of the galaxy. And because of that, they have voted to remain neutral. A single word that feels like betrayal. Earth sent the Council countless resources over decades. Earth stood by them during peace talks, trade disputes, and skirmishes. Earth followed their rules even when it was inconvenient. And now, when the situation turns deadly, the Council chooses to look away. When the broadcast reaches Earth, the reaction is immediate. People across the planet gather in crowds, watching in disbelief. Many are angry. Many feel abandoned. Some even refuse to believe it, thinking it must be a mistake or misunderstanding. But it is neither. The Council has decided that Earth's survival is not worth their risk. Military leaders now face a terrifying reality. They are alone. Their forces are brave, but small compared to the enemy fleet closing in. Even the most advanced human warships cannot match that kind of power. Officers try to encourage their teams, but everyone can see the truth in their eyes. The situation is nearly impossible. Still, humans are not known for giving up easily. Earth's commanders activate old emergency protocols. They instruct civilians to move toward shelters on major continents. They instruct colonists in the inner systems to prepare evacuation routes. They call reserve fleets out of retirement, even though many of the ships are outdated. Engineers work day and night to repair old equipment and build new defenses. Volunteers gather supplies, medical crews train nonstop, and communication teams try to maintain contact with remote stations. Even with all this effort, one thought remains in everyone's mind. Will it be enough? For most people, the answer seems obvious. No, not against such a massive enemy. But there are always a few who believe in miracles. Some whisper about old legend stories of humans who fought in past ages, in wars so terrible that most records were erased or lost. These humans were said to have been sent far away, beyond the borders of known space, never to return. Many dismissed those stories as myths, exaggerations, or bedtime tales created to inspire bravery. But now, with the enemy fleet approaching, those old stories suddenly feel different. People begin asking quiet questions. Are the legends true? Were there really humans who survived wars that no one else could endure? And if they existed, where are they now? Inside a dim room in an underground facility, a small group of high-ranking officers gather. They sit around a large holographic table, showing the enemy's rapid approach. No one talks for a long moment. They all know the council has abandoned them. They all know their defenses might fail. But they also know something else, something almost no one on Earth remembers anymore. One officer finally breaks the silence. She slides an old file across the table. Its cover is faded, its surface worn from years of storage. She says this: "File contains information about a group that once fought in humanity's darkest hours, people who were sent into distant territory long ago. They were not officially part of the present military. They were not mentioned in any recent records. Most citizens believed they were long gone, but they were not gone. They simply stayed silent." The officers look at one another. They understand the risks. They understand the uncertainty. There is no guarantee these lost humans still exist, or that they would even respond. But at this point, Earth has no other choices left. A decision is made quietly, without public announcements, without debates. They activate an old, hidden communication channel that has not been used in generations. The device hums to life, dust falling from its surface as the signal begins to travel across the stars. No one knows whether anyone will hear it. No one knows whether the message will reach the right people. But the officers send it anyway. They send a plea not for Allahs, not for political support, but for survival. Then they wait. Hours pass. Then more hours. Nothing happens. Many officers begin to believe they were foolish to trust ancient legends. But just as they are about to shut down the transmitter, something unusual appears on the screen, a faint echo, almost impossible to detect. A heartbeat of a signal, a sign of life. Everyone in the room freezes. Technicians check the instruments, thinking it must be interference, but it is not interference. The signal becomes clearer, stronger. Someone out there has heard them. Within seconds, the room fills with quiet excitement and fear all at once. If the legends are real, then humanity might have just reached out to warriors who experienced more battles than any living soldier. People who survived conflicts so brutal that most civilizations believed no one could live through them. People who were shaped by wars the galaxy has tried to forget. The officers cannot see who responded. They cannot hear a voice yet. But they know one thing. Someone answered. And that single spark of hope begins to spread across Earth softly, secretly, like the first whisper of sunrise before a long, dark night. The world does not know it yet. Civilians go about their day, thinking they have no help coming. Families prepare for the worst. Soldiers sharpen their courage. And news channels continue to repeat the same message. No allies are arriving. What no one realizes is that this time, the help that may come is not from allies at all. It is from survivors of wars so ancient and harsh that the galaxy itself refuses to remember them. And if these survivors truly exist, their arrival could change everything. Far from Earth so far that most maps don't even show the places where these humans live. These regions are deep in the outer galaxy, where the stars are dimmer, the planets colder, and the distances between systems so large that people rarely travel there anymore. It is a forgotten stretch of space, and almost no one from modern civilization ever goes near it. But long ago, during a terrible age of war, a group of humans traveled into this remote frontier. They did not go there by choice. They were sent. They were soldiers who had survived wars so brutal that governments didn't know what to do with them afterward. Their experience was unmatched, their skills terrifying, and their memories filled with battles no one else wanted to remember. Instead of returning them to normal life, leaders at the time sent them out to protect the edges of human space far away, where their presence would not disturb the peace. Over generations, their descendants continued the same way of life. They grew into a unique society, hardened, disciplined, distant from the rest of civilization. They did not trust outsiders, not because they were cruel, but because they had seen too much betrayal in the old wars. They built massive warships with designs forgotten elsewhere. They trained in ways that seemed unrealistic to modern soldiers. And they carried the burden of surviving endless cycles of conflict that most people believed were legends. These were the people Earth was trying to contact. Their territory is quiet, almost unnaturally quiet. When the signal from Earth arrives, it reaches a lonely relay station floating above a half-frozen moon. The station is old, built before the Galactic Council even existed. It should not even be functioning anymore. Yet somehow it still works. Maintained by a few engineers who treat it like a living thing. The signal hits the receiver, and for a moment, no one notices. The crew is busy repairing old solar panels and checking weather reports from the moon below. Then the alarm lights blink. One engineer stops in his tracks. The blinking is slow at first, then faster, then steady. It means only one thing: a long range. Emergency signal has been received. The last time something like this happened was many years ago, and even then it turned out to be an accidental transmission from a passing cargo ship. But this signal is different. It contains a code that has not been used for generations, a code that only humans from the old wars knew. The engineer calls for the station commander. Soon, a small team gathers around the console, staring at the repeating message. The voice is shaky, but the words are clear. Earth is in danger. The message lists the location of the enemy fleet, the damage already done, and the decision of the Galactic Council to stay neutral. The tone of the message is desperate, but not hopeless. The officers back on Earth sent it with the kind of determination that only shows up when people are fighting for survival. The station team listens to the message twice, then 3 times. They exchange looks, surprised, uneasy, and thoughtful. Then the commander gives an order. Forward the message to the main fleet. The message travels through a communication network that stretches across dozens of distant outposts. Every few minutes, another station picks it up, forwards it, and marks it as urgent. People working on those stations stop what they are doing and listen quietly. Some close their eyes, remembering stories their elders told them about Earth. Others feel a strange mix of longing and sorrow, because many of them have never seen Earth at all. It is the place their ancestors came from, but over time it became only a memory. Finally, the message reaches the fleet headquarters, a fortified base carved into the rocky surface of a large, barren planet. The base looks like it was built for a war that never ended. Heavy armor plates cover the walls. Old but powerful anti-ship cannons line the cliffs. And in vast hangars below the surface, enormous warships rest like sleeping giants inside the central chamber of the base. Senior commanders listen to Earth's message. They say nothing at first. These are people who have faced more battles than most civilizations even record. Their expressions are calm but serious. They understand the meaning of the message better than anyone else. They know what it means when a world says it has been abandoned by its allies. They know what it means when an enemy fleet destroys outpost after outpost. They know the kind of fear Earth must be feeling at this very moment. After a long silence, one commander asks a simple question. How long do they have? An analyst studies the enemy's path and calculates the speed. The answer is grim. Earth does not have long. The enemy is closing in faster than expected, and once they reach the inner systems, the damage will be swift. The commanders do not panic. They are not the type to panic. But they also do not ignore reality. They start discussing possibilities. Could they reach Earth in time? Could their old ships handle the journey? Would they be seen as intruders if they arrived unannounced? Would the enemy intercept them before they even reached human territory? Despite all these questions, one thing becomes clear. If they do nothing, Earth will fall at that moment. The leader of the fleet enters the chamber. This person has lived through more wars than anyone else in the room. Their hair is streaked with gray, their face marked by years of unforgiving training and duty. But their presence is strong, unshaken, almost unbreakable. They look at the projection of Earth on the wall-blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Even after generations, Earth still looks beautiful. The leader listens to the message only once. They don't ask for details. They don't ask for opinions. When the message ends, the leader simply says, "Prepare the ships." The officers around the room exchange glances. Not surprised, but deeply aware of what this decision means. Preparing the ships is not a small thing. These are not ordinary vessels. They are war machines forged in forgotten eras, built for conflicts that pushed human engineering to its limits. Some are so large that their hangars take up entire mountains. Others are sleek and fast, designed for daring strikes deep into enemy territory. Together, they form a fleet that has not been fully activated in decades. News spreads quickly throughout the base and across nearby colonies. The message from Earth is played again and again. People listen quietly. Young engineers, veteran pilots, mechanics, cooks, medics, farmers, and even children. Some do not understand why Earth matters so much. Others feel a deep pull, like a connection they never knew they still had. In a small settlement near the base, an elderly person sits by a window, watching as the lights of the warships turn on one by one. They remember stories told by their grandparents, stories about Earth's beauty, Earth's struggles, and Earth's people. They whisper softly to themselves, "It was only a matter of time." Back at the base, technicians run between stations, checking engines, recharging power. Corps updating old navigation maps. Pilots receive their briefing calmly, though many feel a flutter of emotion. Some have never traveled beyond their region. Others remember the last time the fleet launched and the heavy losses that followed. But no one hesitates. They know why they are doing this. Not because Earth ordered them. Not because they expect rewards. Not because they want revenge. They are doing it because Earth is part of who they are. Because if humanity falls in its birthplace, something precious will be lost forever. While the preparations continue, the enemy fleet moves closer to Earth. Reports from the inner colonies grow more alarming. Every day, more people evacuate into shelters. Every day, more messages of fear spread through public channels. And every day, the Galactic Council remains silent. But something has changed. Somewhere out in the cold darkness of space, engines begin to ignite. Massive doors open across the base, releasing the first of the ancient warships. Their metal surfaces reflect faint starlight as they rise into the sky. More ships follow, large, small, fast, heavy, each one carrying fighters who have survived. Battles that history books no longer mention. They call themselves many things: exiles, guardians, wanderers, defenders. But the one thing they all share is a truth the rest of the galaxy forgot. They do not run from war, that they survive it. And now, after generations of silence, the survivors of 1,000 wars begin their journey toward Earth, not as allies, not as rescuers, but as humans who refuse to let their origin fall. Their engines roar across the void. Their formation grows stronger. And somewhere on Earth, without knowing why, people suddenly feel a faint sense of hope. The survivors are coming. The enemy fleet moving steadily toward Earth. Day by day, their formation becomes clearer on long-range scanners. And every update brings the same message. They are not slowing down. They are not negotiating. They are not changing course. They are coming with full strength. On Earth, the atmosphere feels thick with tension. People try to continue their daily routines, but their minds keep drifting back to the same thought. How long until the enemy arrives? News channels repeat the same information. Experts give the same warnings, and officials try their best to speak calmly, even though their eyes betray the truth. The world is preparing for the worst. In many cities, crowds gather outside public screens showing the latest updates from the space monitoring stations. Children cling to their parents, asking questions that parents struggle to answer. Teenagers check their devices constantly, looking for any hint of good news. Elderly citizens watch silently, remembering earlier times when humanity faced danger, but always found a way to survive. Some still believe the Council will change its mind at the last moment, but that hope fades more every hour. People still do not know about the message Earth sent to the forgotten humans. They do not know that far away, an ancient fleet has awakened. They do not know that someone has already answered the call. And maybe that is for the best. Giving false hope would only make things harder if help does not arrive in time. Inside Earth's main defense headquarters, the atmosphere is tense but focused. Holographic displays show the enemy fleet in bright red, slowly moving across the star map. Their numbers are intimidating. Their formation is perfect. The officers inside the room quietly exchange information while keeping their voices controlled. No one wants their fear to spread to the younger soldiers who are already nervous. Suddenly, a small alarm beeps from one of the monitoring consoles. An operator frowns and leans closer to the screen. At first, it looks like interference random noise in deep space. But then the signal grows stronger. The operator enlarges it, and his eyes narrow in confusion. It is not interference. It is too regular, too precise. He calls for the senior officer. The officer steps closer, checks the reading carefully, and then shakes his head. "That can't be real," he says quietly. But the reading stays steady. Something is approaching Earth, something large, but not enemy. A line dot as minutes pass. The strange signal becomes clearer. Then another appears, and another, and another. The officers zoom out the map, and their eyes widen. Hundreds of warp signatures are appearing at the edge of the system, and they are not coming from Galactic Council space. They are emerging from the empty regions where no one has traveled in generations. At first, no one speaks. They stare at the map with disbelief, unable to process what they are seeing. Then someone whispers, "Is the Council finally helping?" "You?" But that hope fades quickly. The Council does not use this type of warp signature. Their ships have a distinct pattern, and this is not it. This is something else, something older, stronger, heavier dot inside the command room. Tension shifts into confusion, then into cautious curiosity. They watch the radar as the signatures move closer. The shapes of the incoming ships begin to form. Some are unbelievably larger than anything currently in Earth's fleet. Others are smaller but extremely fast, moving with sharp precision. No one recognizes the designs. Then, slowly, the shapes become clear enough to identify the materials. And when they see the metallic signatures, they know exactly what these ships are made of: human alloys. Old human alloys. Someone in the room whispers the words no one expected to hear. They're ours. They're human. The entire room falls silent. Slowly, the officers remember the ancient stories, the lost warriors, the forgotten fleet, the survivors of the old wars. Most people thought those legends were mythology. But now, the evidence is right in front of them. Earth is not alone. As the unknown ships enter the inner system, public screens across the planet light up with alerts. People stop whatever they are doing and look toward the sky. Even though the ships can't be seen from the surface, the news spreads quickly. Something massive is arriving. Something that doesn't match any known enemy or Council design. People rush to windows and rooftops anyway, staring upward as if expecting the sky to open. In Earth orbit, defense crews scramble to their stations. They prepare weapons just in case, but many of them feel something surprising: hope mixed with fear. If these ships are hostile, humanity has no chance. But if they are friendly, the first ship appears on visual screens. It is enormous, covered in black armor that reflects almost no light. Its shape is angular, with deep grooves and heavy plating that show signs of countless repairs over many years. It does not broadcast any symbols or flags. Instead, it sends a single coded message, one that Earth hasn't seen in centuries. Message is short and powerful. We received your call. As the message plays across the control rooms, a wave of emotion spreads. Some officers cover their mouths, overwhelmed. Others straighten their posture, not out of duty, but out of respect. People who have never believed in legends suddenly feel tears forming in their eyes. The survivors have returned. More ships warp in behind the first wave rows of heavy cruisers, spear-shaped carriers, silent destroyers, and sleek scout vessels. Their colors are muted, built for war rather than display. Their engines glow softly, as if they have burned for so long that they've grown tired, but still refuse to stop. Every ship carries scars from battles fought in distant sectors, strange marks, burns, dents, and repairs using materials no one on Earth has seen in ages. Earth's defense commander gives the order to open communication. A channel is established. Everyone in the room stands straighter than usual, waiting for a voice. The voice that speaks is calm, steady, and strong. It carries the weight of thousands of battles, but also a warmth that is unmistakably human. Earth, stand by. Hold your line. We are taking position. Those words travel across Earth's communication network within seconds. Every soldier hears them. Every pilot hears them. Even civilians who are close to public monitors hear fragments of the broadcast. People freeze, processing the message. Then something begins to happen that hasn't happened since the crisis began. People cheer. It is not a loud, explosive cheer. It is slow, almost disbelieving, but full of life. In shelters, families hug each other tightly. In military bases, young cadets clap their hands and shout with excitement. On farms, workers drop their tools and stare at the sky with wide eyes. On space stations, engineers whisper to each other, "We're saved. We might actually be saved." But the moment of celebration does not last long, because the enemy fleet has also detected the arrival of the survivor fleet. Far out in space, the enemy formation hesitates for the first time. Their scouts adjust their path. Their engines flicker as they slow down to analyze what has appeared between them and Earth. They begin scanning the newcomer ships, but the scans return incomplete data. The survivor warships are too heavily armored and too technologically unique to be properly read by standard systems. Earth sees the hesitation too. For the first time, the enemy does not look unstoppable. Then something breathtaking happens. The survivor fleet moves, not slowly, not cautiously. They move with perfect synchronization, like a single living creature. Their warships form a massive shield wall around Earth, locks clicking into place, engines adjusting automatically, power cores aligning at the exact same moment. It is a sight none of Earth's people will ever forget. A trembling young officer in the command room whispers, "This is incredible." The senior officer beside him nods slowly and says, "This is what real experience looks like." The survivors then send one more message. It is brief, almost gentle, but filled with confidence. "Earth, you are under our protection now." Those simple words spread like fire through every city, every shelter, every base. For the first time since the crisis began, people feel a sense of safety, a sense that humanity's story is not ending today. The enemy fleet, now cautious and unsure, begins to reposition, preparing for what they did not expect. A battle against warriors who survived conflicts more brutal than anything in the current era. The survivors have returned not as myths, not as shadows, but as living reminders of what humanity is capable of becoming when pushed to its limits. And as their fleet glows softly in Earth's orbit, one truth becomes clear to everyone watching. Hope has arrived. The survivor fleet has formed a protective ring around Earth, and for the first time since the crisis began, the planet feels a breath of relief. But that relief is fragile. It sits on top of a heavy truth. The battle is still coming. The enemy fleet is close enough that their signals show up clearly on every screen. And even from far away, their formation looks huge. On Earth, people stand by screens, waiting, hoping, holding their breath. It doesn't matter where they are: city, apartments, rural houses, underground shelters, space stations, or ocean platforms. Everyone is watching the same thing. Even children sense something big is about to happen. It feels like the whole world has paused. Up in orbit, the survivor fleet prepares with quiet, disciplined calm. Their ships do not shine or move dramatically. They simply adjust position with smooth, steady motion. It's the kind of preparation that comes from long experience, not panic. Inside these ships, the crews speak softly, their voices steady. They check controls, look over old control panels, tighten straps on their seats, and breathe slowly, as if they've done this 1,000 times, and many of them actually have. The enemy fleet continues to move forward. They do not speed up. They do not slow down. Their approach is steady and confident. By now, they have figured out at least one thing. The survivor fleet is human, but that does not seem to bother them. They still believe they have the advantage in numbers and modernity. They still think Earth is a small target. They still think this will end easily. Then the first contact happens. An alert pops up across the communication network. The enemy has sent a message. It is not a warning. It is not an attempt to negotiate. It is simply a cold signal asking the survivor fleet to step aside, claiming that Earth's fate has already been decided. The survivor fleet does not answer right away. They let the message sit there, suspended in empty space, like a breath waiting to be released. Officers inside the ships glance at each other, but say nothing. Their leader reads the message calmly, without any change in expression. Finally, after a long pause, a simple reply is sent. We are not moving. That's it. No threats, no speeches, no dramatic lines. Just steady, Clear words that carry the weight of a civilization that refuses to let its home be harmed. The enemy fleet pauses for the first time. They do not understand what kind of humans these are. They expected fear, not confidence. They expected hesitation, not certainty. They analyzed the situation again, scanning the survivor ships, reading their energy levels, trying to understand their formations. But the scans return incomplete data. The ships are too heavily modified, too uniquely built. They do not match any known designs from modern times. On Earth, people do not hear the exchange, but they see the sudden halt in the enemy's advance. Hope rises slightly, though it trembles like a candle flame in the wind. Inside one of the survivor ships, the crew prepares their systems with quiet discipline. They check stabilizers, review old battle routines, tighten their gloves, and look over tactical displays that feel familiar, even comforting. These people have fought in places where entire sectors were on fire. They have survived battles that lasted weeks without rest. They know what pressure feels like, and this moment right now is calm compared to what they've been through. The leader of the survivor fleet gives a signal, a simple gesture, barely noticeable, but full of meaning. And across the entire formation, every ship responds in perfect unity. Engines shift into combat posture. Shields hum gently. Old weapon systems come online not for destruction, but for defense, for precision, for control. The enemy fleet receives the message clearly. The survivors are not backing down. For a moment, space becomes still again. Two massive forces facing each other in silence. One confident because of numbers and technology. The other confident because of experience and unity. Then the enemy fleet makes the first move. Several of their ships advance, testing the survivor line. They do not fire. They simply approach, trying to see if the survivors will react by retreating. But the survivors stay completely still. They do not flinch. They do not reposition. They remain calm, sending a strong message without saying a word. They will not allow the enemy to pass. On Earth, the screens update. People hold their breath. Some whisper prayers. Others grip each other's hands. A quiet tension spreads across the planet like a slow wave. And the enemy shifts tactics. They break into multiple wings, spreading out to test the survivor fleet from different angles. It is an intimidating display, but the survivors do not panic. Instead, they adjust their formation with smooth, practiced ease. They move as if they have rehearsed this scenario many times, even though this enemy is completely new to them. Earth's defense commander watches the movement in awe. They know exactly what they're doing. He whispers at that moment. The survivor fleet sends a message to Earth. The voice on the broadcast is calm, steady, almost gentle. Stay in formation. Follow our lead. Earth's pilots respond immediately. For the first time, they feel certainty instead of fear. They align their smaller ships behind the survivor vessels, forming a multi-layered shield around the planet. Up in space, the enemy. Fleet finishes positioning, and a quiet moment passes. A moment so still that people all over Earth instinctively stop breathing, and then it begins. The enemy surges forward with a sudden burst of energy. Not in a violent way, but with intimidating speed and confidence. Their ships glide through space in tight formation, perfect synchronization, like an unstoppable wall of power. The survivor fleet reacts instantly. Their ships are old, but their response is fast, precise, and full of intention. They shift to counter in a way that looks effortless, even graceful. Their formation tightens, their engines adjust, and their shields rise like a silent wave, protecting everything behind them. From the ground, people see bright shapes appearing on the Skyview screens, showing the two forces closing in. But the view is kept safe and clean, no harmful imagery, no disturbing scenes. Just movements of light, lines and ships, shifting through space. Inside one of the survivor ships, the crew works without hesitation. Their hands move across controls, their eyes watch for subtle changes, and their bodies remain steady as they prepare to respond with perfect timing. They do not rely on panic or adrenaline. They rely on experience. The first enemy group reaches the survivor line. The survivors respond with a maneuver so precise that Earth's officers gasp. Instead of direct confrontation, the survivors shift sideways in perfect harmony, letting the enemy's energy pass harmlessly into empty space. Then they pivot, using the opening to disable several of the enemy's front systems. Not destroy, not harm, just disable. Controlled, clean, efficient. Earth's crews watch in amazement. Their screens show one thing clearly: the survivors are not fighting with rage. They are fighting with skill, with discipline, with deep understanding. They use the enemy's movements against them, guiding them into positions where their own attacks lose effectiveness. The enemy realizes they have miscalculated. They regroup. They try different angles. They try to break the formation. But every time they shift, the survivors anticipate the move before it even begins. Their battle patterns feel almost like a dance, smooth, steady, controlled. Earth's smaller ships follow behind, supporting with safe distance maneuvers, assisting injured pilots, protecting vulnerable areas. For the first time, Earth's defenders do not feel like they are scrambling. They feel guided, supported, anchored. As the battle continues, the enemy begins to falter. Their wings lose coordination. Their timing slips. Their confidence wavers. They have never faced opponents who fight with such calm precision. Their numbers suddenly feel less important. Earth's command rooms erupt with a mixture of relief and disbelief. People watching at home feel hope rising fast, warming their hearts in ways they haven't felt since the crisis began. The survivors continue guiding the fight gently, steadily pushing the enemy farther from Earth. And finally, after a long and intense sequence of movements, the enemy fleet retreats, not destroyed, not crushed, but pushed away with balanced force. In homes, shelters, stations, and bases, people begin cheering, crying, hugging one another. They can hardly believe what they've just witnessed. Earth has survived. But it didn't survive because of allies. It survived because the forgotten humans, the survivors of 1,000 wars, stood between the planet and danger with unbreakable resolve. And now, as the survivors gently reposition their ships in calm formation, one thing is clear: they didn't just defend Earth, they reminded humanity of its strength. When the final echoes of the battle faded and the sky slowly cleared, no one on Earth moved for a long moment. It was as if everyone was trying to understand what had just happened. Hours earlier, people were preparing for the worst, believing their world would be taken from them. Now they stood under a sky that was calm again, protected by ships they never expected to see, ships that belonged to humans who had been gone for generations. Some people cried in relief. Some simply stared upward, as if waiting for someone to explain it all. But there was nothing to explain. The only truth was that Earth still stood, and the ones who saved it were the same ones everyone believed were lost forever. In orbit, the exile fleet began to reorganize. Their ships, dark and heavy, looked almost ancient compared to modern designs. But they still moved with purpose, like they had done this many times before. They positioned themselves around the planet as if they were familiar with defending it, even though most of them had not seen Earth with their own eyes since they were children. Inside those ships, the crew remained calm. They had fought wars far worse than this one. To them, this battle was just another page in the long story of humans refusing to disappear. On the surface, rescue teams spread out to help damaged areas. Many cities had been hit by debris, and some stations in orbit had lost power, but the destruction was far less than expected. Most of the enemy's fire had been intercepted long before reaching the ground. People still gathered in the streets, talking, shaking hands, hugging one another, telling the same thing over and over: we survived. Even if they didn't know who to thank, they still felt a deep, quiet gratitude. The first exile landing craft entered the atmosphere a few hours after victory. Its engines glowed a warm color, not meant to frighten anyone. Crowds gathered near. The landing zone, an open field outside a large city. People waited in silence, unsure what kind of humans they were about to meet. Some expected soldiers who looked tired or worn down. Others expected hardened warriors who would keep their distance. But everyone was wrong. When the landing craft touched the ground and its doors opened, the people who stepped out looked normal. They were dressed in uniforms that showed countless repairs, but their faces were calm, almost gentle. They weren't monsters made by endless wars. They weren't emotionless machines. They were simply human beings, strong, serious, but not cold. Many of them paused, breathing in the air of Earth as if it was something rare. For them, maybe it was. One of the exile officers walked ahead, but he didn't speak first. Instead, he looked around at the people waiting, studying their expressions. There was no fear in his eyes, no pride either. Just a quiet understanding. Finally, he said something simple. "We came home because you called." A wave of emotion passed through the crowd. Some people stepped forward, saying thank you. Others asked where the exiles had been all this time. The officer explained that they had survived on distant worlds, fighting wars Earth never learned about. They stayed away because they believed their presence would bring danger to the planet. But when Earth sent its distress signal, they knew. They couldn't ignore it. They had lived too long carrying the burden of war alone. They didn't want Earth to suffer the same fate. More landing craft arrived. More exiles stepped onto Earth and saw it with their own eyes. Many of them looked around with expressions that were somewhere between relief and disbelief. They had survived too long, fought too many battles, and lost too many friends. Some of them had waited their entire lives to return to this moment. And now that they were finally here, it felt almost unreal. The global government held an emergency meeting with the exile leaders. Every important official gathered, but for once, no one argued. No one tried to claim credit for anything. The room was filled with respect and silence. The exiles explained their past, their struggles, the worlds they had defended, and the mistakes that had kept them away. They apologized for staying silent for so long, even though they didn't need to. Earth's leaders, in return, apologized for believing the exiles were gone forever and failing to reach out. News of the exiles spread quickly across every continent. Children asked their parents who these people were. Some parents tried to explain, but most of them didn't know the full story either. All they knew was that these humans had survived wars so long and so far away that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten them. But the exiles hadn't forgotten Earth. Not for a single moment. As the days passed, people began to visit the exile camps set up near major cities. The exiles never acted like invaders or outsiders. They sat with citizens, shared stories, listened to questions, and laughed in ways that made them seem familiar. They talked about the planets they had defended, but they always avoided graphic details. They didn't want to frighten anyone. They wanted Earth to understand that they didn't fight because they loved war. They fought because someone had to. Slowly, the fear people first felt began to fade. The exiles were not here to rule or control. They didn't demand anything. They didn't take anything. Instead, they offered knowledge, technology, and support. Some scientists were amazed by the machines the exiles carried devices created because their survival depended on them. Engineers studied their ships with excitement. Doctors asked about new medical techniques learned from distant worlds. Everything the exiles shared was given freely, without conditions. But the biggest change happened inside the hearts of the people. Before this battle, many humans believed Earth was too small, too weak, or too late to matter in the galaxy. They believed other species held more power, more knowledge, more strength. But after seeing the exiles fight, people realized something important. Humans had always been capable of greatness. They had simply forgotten it. Messages from the Galactic Council began to arrive. They congratulated Earth for surviving, offered excuses for why they didn't send help, and tried to act as if everything was normal. But no one on Earth listened. People were polite, but distant. They didn't shout or threaten. They didn't try to make trouble. They simply understood that the Council's promises were empty. And for the first time, they didn't need them. The exiles stood with Earth now. And that was enough. In time, representatives from the exiles visited different countries, meeting leaders, walking through cities, and admiring the progress Earth had made. They said it felt strange, almost like waking from a long, dark dream and finding that home had continued to grow without them. Some exiles felt tears in their eyes when they saw children playing or families walking through parks. These were the things they had fought to protect long ago. Seeing them alive again reminded them why they survived all those years. Earth began to plan how to move forward. They knew the galaxy would react to their new strength. Some foreign powers might fear them. Others might try to make alliances. But Earth didn't rush into anything. They needed time to rebuild, time to understand the exiles, and time to decide what kind of future they wanted. One evening, as the sun set across a quiet coastline, a group of exiles stood near the water. They watched the waves move calmly, something they had not seen in decades. One of them said softly, "All those years, all those battles, it was worth it." Another replied, "As long as Earth stands, everything was worth it." They didn't need applause or rewards. Their home was alive. That was enough. Days turned into weeks. Repairs were finished. Schools reopened. Families returned to their daily routines. But something had changed forever. Earth was no longer afraid. People carried themselves with a new confidence, a quiet strength. They knew now that humanity had a history deeper and stronger than they ever imagined. They knew that humans could survive anything, even when the galaxy turned its back on them. And they knew they were not alone, not anymore. The exiles stayed, not as rulers, but as family. They trained Earth's defense forces, shared stories of distant stars, and helped build a future where humans would no longer be underestimated. The galaxy had seen Earth as a weak world. But now, with the return of those who survived 1,000 wars, no one would make that mistake again. Humanity had rediscovered its forgotten strength. And this time, they would not let it fade.